Good afternoon, everyone, and hopefully you can all hear me okay. If at any point you have any comments or questions, please either throw them into the Q&A section and we'll cover them at the end, or drop them into the chat, which you should see at the top. For the sake of everyone, you'll all be muted with cameras off today, just to make it easier as we get through it. But please do jump in at any point in time if you have any questions on anything we're covering today. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes just to let anyone who's running a little bit late join us. I know we had a couple of people who said they were coming straight from something else that finished at 12 o'clock. So we're just going to give them a couple of minutes there. If you'd like to just pop in the chat and just say hi, who you are, where you're from, that would be great. We'd love to see you and love to know where you're from. And if you do have any specific questions, please do chuck them in the Q&A section and we'll go through that at the end. So this session today is going to be just half an hour quick overview of getting started with AI. And we're going to cover just a few basic things, hopefully to get you started in your journey with AI. We're not going to cover complex prompting or any of those kind of topics today. We're only going to look at a couple of little applications, and we'll certainly cover off a few use cases. Hopefully this will give you a few ideas, and if you'd like to know more afterwards, we're going to include a survey and feedback questionnaire at the end. If there is anything you'd like additional help on at the end, please do put it into there, and we will follow up with you after the session. The email address is optional on that, so if you do want us to follow up, obviously make sure you include your email address. I'm just going to see someone said they had a connection issue, so I'm just going to let them reconnect and come back in, and then we'll get started in a second. So thanks everyone for joining us today. My name's Luke and I am the group head of AI here at Intergage. So my job role is very much around making sure that everyone here at the Intergage group is making best use of AI in our jobs and working with our clients to help them to do the best as well. I spend a lot of my time training and presenting with organisations like local councils, which I've done most of them across Dorset, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, and New Forest over the last few months, and also working directly with some of our clients. My role is very much just making sure we're looking at the use cases and how we're applying AI. Although I am a geek, I'm not an AI developer. I don't work in data science or any of those fields. My role is very application based. So you're joining us today, and hopefully this is what you're expecting. So we're going to give a little bit of an overview of the current state of AI. Then we're going to move on to what is ChatGPT, or large language models, as you might have also heard them referred to. So that's things like ChatGPT, Gemini, that you might have heard mentioned, or Claude. And we're going to talk a little bit about how they work. The reason for that is I think there's a very important concept in that a lot of people don't seem to be familiar with. And I think it's really important if you start using AI that you're familiar with that. So we'll cover that. As we go through the session today, we'll also have some examples of real world use cases for AI tools. So hopefully you can take away some actual practical things. You can't fit a lot in a half an hour session, but we're going to allow 15 minutes for questions. So hopefully there's still some real value in there. And like I said, if you'd like to know more on any of this after the session, there will be a feedback questionnaire at the end that includes an optional question to tell us what you'd like to learn more of, and we'll make sure we can follow that up with you. So please do include your email address in that follow-up survey and we can capture that for you. Would also say for anyone joining late, we are recording this session. So all people that have registered as an attendee will get a video follow-up. So if there is a colleague perhaps you wanted to share it with, you'll be able to share that with them after the session as well today. So I hope that's what everyone's interested in. Hi Jane, thank you for commenting in the chat. If you'd like to just pop a note in and just say who you are and where you're from, that'd be great. And if you have any questions, please do throw them into the Q&A as we go. I'm also happy to take questions as we go. I would hate to talk about something and not clarify that as we go, but hopefully we'll be fine as we get along. So I think the first and most important thing to say is that AI is a part of your everyday life already. I think some people are perhaps aware of some of these, but maybe not all of them. So things like Google Assistant, Alexa, Cortana, which is now retired, and Siri all use AI in their text-to-speech and speech-to-text recognition. Things like social media feeds, so the information that you're shown on Facebook, on X, on LinkedIn, is sorted by an algorithm that uses artificial intelligence to decide what you're most likely to respond to. And we're all familiar with things like Amazon offering us additional products you might be interested in. Something not many people are aware of is that if you and I are looking at the same film suggestions on Netflix, we're likely to have different thumbnails. So Netflix continually optimize the thumbnails based on what you watch as time goes on, as a way of encouraging you to view it. So if you're ever at a friend's house and you look at Netflix, what you'll find is that they might get different thumbnails to you for the same programs. And that's the use of AI, just optimizing and improving things there. We've probably all come across Grammarly and other spell checker and grammar checkers. Those are getting much more intelligent in terms of, rather than just being able to rectify one word, they're able to look at the wider context of the sentence and just suggest the corrections there for you. And then things like unlocking your device with biometrics, search, Google Maps, are all examples of AI that are in use today. I think one of the reasons that Intergage and myself saw AI as a really important topic is that there's a lot of technology advances and a lot of hype around those kind of technology advances. So you've heard people in the past talking about metaverse and things like that. But actually, when you look at AI, every single large industry figure believes this is the most significant change since perhaps the Industrial Revolution. And Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, this is as big a breakthrough, a milestone as I've seen in the whole digital computer realm. Very much a believer. And I could have taken similar quotes from people from Oracle, Apple, Amazon, any large company, and I could have found you a similar quote from all of them. So I think when sometimes the question I get at AI sessions that I run is, is this hype and it's not actually going to be very useful, it's never going to amount to anything. If you look across the industry and across commentators, there is almost universal acceptance that this is a very significant moment in technology. And at Intergage, we've been through a process where we've been working on what are the things we need to do to prepare as an organization, how do we want to make best use of these tools, and hopefully we can share some of that with you and with others. And that's part of our plan and our goal. So I just want to talk very briefly about the evolution of generative AI. So when people talk about AI at the moment, they're mostly talking about something that, strictly speaking, should be called generative AI. So this is ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or any of these products you might have heard of. And really, it all kicked off in November 22 when ChatGPT 3 was launched. And for the first time, we had a general text-based conversation you could have with a system, and it would give you an answer to seemingly any question. So we had text to chat was kind of a big early process. Around that time, we did also have text images, so you could type in a prompt, make me a picture of 3 cats having dinner, and it would produce you a picture. But the quality of those at that point in time was not very good. Now we're at the point where the quality of those really is very good. And we're also starting now to see text to audio. So that is, there are tools like Udio or Sudo, where you can say, please make me a 30-second piece of music, which is background to a video like this. It should be in this style, with or without words, and it will generate you a reasonably decent piece of music now. And those tools started to appear towards the start of this year. So text was nearly 2 years ago. Images really came into their own sort of towards the end of 2023. Start of this year, we start to see text audio, and the current wave of evolution is we're starting to see writing text prompts and generating video at the end of it. Now, yes, there are some concerns around those, and we'll talk about that briefly a little bit later. But I think there's still a perception out there at the moment for a lot of people that predominantly AI is just a text window you type into. If you've got a mobile phone, you can install ChatGPT, for example, and you can talk to it. You can give it prompts via your voice, and it will speak back to you with the answers. So we're getting to that point where it's becoming the kind of future that some people thought it always was going to be. I love this example. So this was just over a year and a half ago. I put into a text to image generator, please make me a picture of 2 dogs. I'm not sure what this mutant animal is, but it's certainly not 2 dogs. If you were to do that today, you would get a very good picture of two dogs. You could specify the type of dog, the kind of background, etc. And so I think it's important just to kind of frame how fast some of this stuff is moving. It can also now analyze video images and complex document sets. To give you an idea for the feel of scale, when you are giving information into an AI, it breaks it down into what it calls tokens. Roughly speaking, those tokens are words or parts of words, depending on what they are. And in November 22, the amount of information you could put in was equivalent to about half to a quarter of a book. So you could feed it the context of information you wanted it to work on, and it was around that much text information, about 16,000 tokens, which is about 12,000 words. So yeah, around quarter, half a book, depending on the size of the book, obviously. To give you a feel for how exponentially this is growing, 4 months ago, the latest model from Gemini from Google has a context size of 2 million tokens. So that's equivalent to about a bookshelf worth of information. So we're talking the information you can put in and ask it to work on has gone from a quarter of a book to a bookshelf within that same period of time. And what that also allows you to do is to analyze video. So you can already, there are models you could load in an hour's worth of video content, and then you can ask it questions about things that happen within the video, and it will answer you once it's processed that. And I think that level of speed of change is not slowing down. I think a lot of people say that it might plateau, but what we continually see, in the similar way we saw with Moore's law and to do with the processor speed of computers, is that as it reaches a plateau for one technology, a new technology comes out, and we are seeing new evolutions in AI at the moment. So what you can use that for is you can analyze video, images, and complex document sets rather than just chunks of information. You can use it to write and debug code. You can really create usable images, write music, and actually sound quite human now. There was a famous video a few months ago of Figure, which is a robotics company that integrated OpenAI as the interface to talk between humans and robots. And I saw one of my friends posted it on Facebook and said, "Oh, this is great. It's a shame that it's kind of fake." And I was curious. I said, "Oh, why do you think this is fake?" And they'd said, "Oh, because it has pauses and breaths and things like that in it." And I said, "No, you can set that parameter to make it sound human." And so I just quickly generated a bit of audio that had natural pauses in speech and breaths, and that blew their mind. They were, because they were completely convinced that it was a fake video in terms of the interaction, but it was recorded in real time, live. And I can include the link to that and follow-up email if people are interested to see that video. But if you do want to see it, go look for Figure 1 versus ChatGPT. It's a great video. So I'd like to just do a quick test with you now. I'm going to show a couple of videos, and I want you to tell me if you think this is a real video or whether someone has written a text prompt and asked AI to generate a video for me. So what I'd love you to do is there's a react button at the top. So if you think it's real, what I'd love you to do is let's go for thumbs up if you think it's real. If you think it's AI generated, I'd like you to use the sort of surprised face at the end. So if everyone's clear on that, let's go for the first video. And there's no sound on this, I should add. So if you think this is real, give it a thumbs up. If you think this is fake, give it a surprised reaction. Okay, a couple of people thinking it's AI, a couple of people thinking it's real. Just watch it again quickly. Any more for any more? There's a few more people on there. So yeah, I think that's about 50-50 voting each way so far. This is AI generated. So the text prompt for this video was create a drone shot of a chapel on the Amalfi Coast in Italy. There's a couple of things you can spot that make this, that I've noticed by watching this a few times. So the first one, and if I'll play it back in a second, if you look at the waves, they go away from the coast. That's the big one that I spotted first. And the second one is if you see the area where there are steps, you'll see some people start to walk down the steps and then disappear. But I think, honestly, if you weren't looking out for it and I hadn't told you that, would you have noticed? I think most people, when I do this in the room, are genuinely quite surprised. And usually I find about half to 2/3 think this is real. There's one other little thing in there, but I won't spoil that. Okay, everyone ready for the next one? So thumbs up if you think it's real, surprise face, you think this is generated from a text prompt. Again, there's no sound on this one. So thumbs up if this is a real video, surprise face if you think this is AI generated from a text prompt. I'll play it another time. It's only a little video. Couple more votes. So real or AI, what do we think? That's AI generated as well. So this is a text prompt of great reflection of a moving train in downtown Japan, shot with video quality as though shot on a mobile phone. So both of those are AI generated. But I think it's important to kind of flag that, just because I don't think most people realize this is the pace that generative AI is evolving at. Very soon, these video generation tools are going to be available to many. These are both examples from a tool called Suno. That's produced by OpenAI. And read into this what you will. I have my opinions on it, but they're not releasing it until after the US elections. I'll read into that, probably what you do as well. But yeah, this is the quality that you can generate from just a text prompt already. Now, if you take that, stepping that back, how is that useful for business? What can you perhaps do with these tools? So just a few use cases that we have here, or that we use. So I find ChatGPT great for idea generation. I write regular newsletter. I'll include a link to that later. And one of the things I find it really useful for is just opening a ChatGPT window and just saying, this is the topic, this is this is my audience, this is the subject. Can you give me some ideas around these things, or perhaps can you incorporate these ideas into there? Something that ChatGPT or Copilot or any of those systems are really good for is summarizing large documents. So I did a workshop with a client recently who received briefing papers from related to a local government project. And when we looked at some of the potential use cases that organization had, they had very large documents to review and find the relevant sections in. So we started experimenting with a few prompts, so loading that document into Copilot as it was for them and asking it to pull out the relevant sections. When I followed up with that organization, they said it was saving them about 8 hours for each document that they previously had to spend on there. So this isn't a job that is necessarily a value-based job. It's not something that's taken away from human creativity. This is a task that you just need to get done. And actually, that's the kind of use cases that I would advocate for going after first if you start to experiment with using some of the AI tools that are out there. So creating a video avatar to deliver product training videos. So I needed to be in 2 places at once a couple of weeks ago. I needed to present internally on one subject, and also needed to be at an event up at IBM Labs in London. So I sent a virtual version of myself to do the presentation to my team. So I recorded from my mobile phone, similar quality to this, just a 2-minute piece to camera using a tool called HeyGen. I then wrote a script, refined a script, added a couple of images into it, hit go, and it generated a video that I shared with one of my colleagues, and they presented it to the team. It was close enough that I found it quite an odd experience seeing myself saying words that I didn't say. Interestingly, and this might be just while it's quite early days, although the video was very convincing and the voice was good, it gave me a slight American accent, which was interesting. One of my friends, actually, when I shared the video with them, they suggested, because it was a digital Luke, that I call it Duke rather than Luke, which is kind of American sounding, so maybe I'll go with that. Another thing that we use a lot here and saves me personally, and I know my colleagues, hours of time every week, is transcribing meetings and creating an action list automatically. So that's something you can do with a number of tools, and I'll talk more about that in a second. If you get my AI newsletter, something you'll have seen we talked about yesterday is developing quick prototypes of applications using the latest version of Anthropic Claude. So Anthropic Claude, there is a free version, and they launched a new feature called Artifacts. That is a way of writing text and generating quick little applications. It does it side by side with the text prompts. You can interact with them. In 5 prompts, I was able to create a simple game using that as a test. And I've got much more on that in the newsletter if you'd be interested to read that. And then things like converting a report into a presentation. I had a really funny workshop a few weeks ago where before I went to see them, I took an article from their website, put it into a Word doc, and converted it into a presentation. It's like, here's something you could do. There was someone there who said that had taken a couple of days to do, and it took me 7 minutes. So here's one I made earlier. So this is the example. So I took the sustainability and green section from this company website. I put it into a Word document just because I was using Microsoft Copilot, which at the moment can't read web pages. I then just did a prompt and said, can you create me a slide deck from this document? So it then started generating what the outline looked like. And then it said, here you go, here's a draft from this. I've made 15 slides and I've included speaker notes and images, etc., from that image. And this is a slide deck. Now, I didn't prompt it within a template. So this is just a Microsoft template that it chose based on the information. And you can see here it's built out some, it summarized it into sections. It created 5 headings for those. This is an example. I won't go through the whole slide deck. It's 15 slides, sorry. So it used images in useful places. So there were 3 images in the blog post. It used all of them within the slide deck. It created these bullet points. They weren't within the original document. And just a few things to note here. So you see on this little screenshot on the right-hand side, oops, sorry. So that's the PowerPoint view that you see as a presenter. So it had not only created bullet points and 15 slides, it created the speaker notes around those. And you can see it's got more detail than it put on the slides, which is always a good way of producing a presentation. And then also what you can see just below, and I cropped it off because it had the company name all over it. It also told you the section of the document and included it in the speaker notes. So you could see what the information was. You could cross-check it against the document, provided speaker notes, and it summarized that document for you. That whole process took me 7 minutes. So from starting with the web page through to copying it into Word doc, writing the prompt, it generating that, and then I had to make a couple of small changes. So the first and biggest change was, for some reason, although it used the images within the presentation, it did also add 3 slides on the end that just had those images on. I don't know why. I do find Copilot occasionally does strange things like that. So I just had to remove those. And then I noticed it had got a name of something wrong at one point throughout the document as well. But other than that, and a little bit of formatting, when I ran this through with them, they were very impressed that this had captured the essence of that blog post and of their approach to sustainability at that organization. It was unfortunate that someone had to do that exercise and it had taken them a few days prior to that session, which was kind of a great example for me, but probably a bit unfortunate for that person, and I'm still a bit guilty about that. So let's talk now a little bit about what is a large language model and how do they work, and about bias, because I think it's a really important subject. We're also going to talk about a thing called hallucination in a second. So historically, if you'd asked an AI for a group of pictured doctors, this is what it would give you. It'd be all white men, middle-aged. If you asked it for other things, it might generate something else. But it was quite bad on stereotyping and generally not producing good images. It's got a lot better as more guardrails and more checks and as better training data and a larger volume of training data has been used. So I actually had to do quite a lot of wrangling to get it to generate this image. Someone in a presentation where I used this recently said that this was all the same person at different ages, which kind of threw me because I think it might be, but anyway. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about why that happens and why we have a thing called hallucinations. So large language models, this is ChatGPT, Gemini, or any of those tools. So the first and most important thing to think about when you're talking about these generative AI or large language models or ChatGPT, it's just a spicy autocomplete. It's a great phrase, which I stole from Kate Bevan, who I follow and chat with occasionally on Twitter. She used to be the Witch tech editor and is a great follow on X or Twitter. Also has a great podcast around AI. When we look at these tools, they are a giant neural network of points in nodes. And as you throw in more and more training data, what it's doing is it finds common connections and makes those pathways more likely. So you've got imagine a big network, and you see those two blue points. If you have repeated bits of information, it will work its way through that and think that that association between those two tokens is more important. Now that's quite a technical concept, and I've bounced around a little bit in the past on how to present that. I think I've got a cunning plan, so bear with me. So, as you said earlier, inputs are broken down into tokens, and then the repeated loading in of information will create connections between them. I'd like to do a quick test with you all now. So if you get ready to type into the chat the answer to a question, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 bits of training data. I want you to read these, and then when I move on to the next slide, I want you to give the answer to me as quickly as you can in the chat. I'd love to say there's a prize, but just gold stars will be the prize for the first person to respond in there. Okay, so the training data is the blue car was faster. The fastest car was blue. Cars that are blue are fast. So read those 3 and then get ready to answer a question for me now into the chat. So blue cars are, what's the next word? Fast. Thanks, Doug. You win the gold star today. Anyone come in the chat? So when I do this in person, I've never had anyone not say fast or faster. Absolutely everyone responds to that. But all of you know that's not correct. But the reason that you've responded in that way instinctively is exactly the reason why large language models hallucinate and potentially can produce bias. Based on the information they're given, if you give it a small context window, so we said, if I expand that to give you a bit more detail, if I told you the blue car was faster, fastest car was blue lights flashing, cars that are blue are fast, becoming harder to sell, you can see that it's not true that the training data it had said that blue cars are fast. But you can understand, hopefully, how it makes a connection between those things. Because when I give you repeatedly bits of information that reinforce with each other, you make a connection between those 2 words, blue and fast, or blue and faster. That's exactly what happens when a large language model hallucinates or produces bias. What's happening is within the big network of nodes, if you give it a very small specific prompt or question without the additional context, it will find the most common connection between those two because it's a spicy autocomplete. It is not Google, it's not a knowledge engine. Now they're starting to get better at knowing when to ask a question to Google or asking when to pull it from its database. But this is a really important concept, and I hope, and my feedback when I did this session in person is that this example really helps people understand that feedback that a lot of people have about AI is, oh, I tried it and it gave me a silly answer. Usually that's because the context you give it is short. When it looks in its big network, it finds the simple, common connection between those answers, which might not be what you as a human expect. These models are run on training sets of data that aren't always up to date. So the last big run of ChatGPT was up to January of this year. So of course, if you're asking it about something that's happened in the last 2 or 3 months, it's simply not going to know about that. And so that would be, it may now start to go off and do that. But what it will do is it will find the best connection between the words you've put in and the information it has in the background. So hopefully that's given you some insight into why things like ChatGPT work in the way that they do. Why does that matter? Well, if you're Apple, they launched a credit card. They had a AI way of doing credit scoring, and they didn't fully test it. And what happened was it frequently gave men significantly larger credit scores than women because the model they trained it on was heavily leaning towards men. So it's really important if you're using any of this stuff that you put in place checks for bias, that it's factually correct and all of those kind of things, because all it is a very clever autocomplete, but I mean an insanely clever autocomplete. Something that's also interesting is research has shown that with longer prompts, if you offer it a tip, it also performs better. So this started off as a joke. Someone said, "Oh, I bet if you offered it $10, it'd give you a better answer," and actually then led to a conversation where someone then did some proper research on it. So actually, when you write a longer prompt, be polite, put into it, you know, potentially put tips into it because on some occasions that really helps. And this didn't make sense. And some people said, "Oh, this is proof that it's becoming conscious or whatever, artificially intelligent, truly." But actually, it's just that within the training data, it had learned to make the association between when people offered each other a tip, they were more likely to get a longer response. And so it simply off the basis of that clever auto completion, it knew that being polite, offering tips gave a better response. And so I'd always encourage you to do that. And that's one of my kind of pro tips. There are some unique risks of AI. So there's a term being used, the kind of equivalent of spam, which is called slop. So this is where you see articles that are just purely generated using AI. I would always encourage anything you generate from AI to go through a human check and human editing first. It's something we're very passionate about here at Intergage, and we have it within our AI policy. There is the chance of things like deep fakes. Most of the sensible tools and the real business tools will make you do a live webcam. I give my permission to generate an AI avatar of myself before letting you do so. We've explained hallucinations. I think also there's a lot of overhype and people not showing enough real practical use cases, which hopefully we can show a couple more of before the end of the session today. And that can lead to a bit of paralysis of there's all these tools I don't know what to do. I would always advocate for starting with what are the simple tasks that take a lot of my time, and are there ways I can do these better or quicker or easier using an AI tool or using ChatGPT. If you'd like to know more on that approach, something we had in the newsletter, the previous edition, not the one that came out yesterday. Be also very aware that if you're in an industry where you have to have an audit trail, for example, finance, sometimes for certain things, you don't necessarily know why it's come to the decision it's made or it's generated the output it's generated. So always make sure you've got clever checks in place to do so. And we've talked about, making sure you've got checks in place for bias, stereotype, and offensive content. We wouldn't want you to be generating, if using it to generate images, for example, to illustrate something, make sure that they're representative of the thing you're illustrating. What are some potential benefits? So there's a great survey from Microsoft called The Future of Work, and they found that knowledge workers using ChatGPT are on average 37% faster and 40% higher quality. So that is that the output generally they produce is better, but 20% less accurate. So where they weren't putting in effective checks early on for the output, there is a risk of putting in fake references, because again, if you say, give me 3 papers that cite this, it will auto complete the likely authors and the names of studies because it doesn't necessarily have that specific reference that it can access. In terms of time saved, an extension of that was a Copilot survey. So Copilot is the Microsoft Office plugin that is from OpenAI in the background. So things like writing a first draft, it saved about half the time. Summarizing a missed meeting, it saved a phenomenal amount of time. And search information. So rather than finding all the emails from someone looking for keywords, you can actually say, what was the last email from my colleague Jessie that talked about the webinar, and it'll go and give you that specific email and give you a link to it that you can go and open. I find that a great way of saving time from finding things in my inbox. So another little tip, there are some tools which will let you transcribe meetings and then create a summary of actions at the end of them. So Otter and Fireflies are ones that will work with a wide range of tools. If you have Microsoft Office 365 and you have Copilot, you can use Copilot to summarize and transcribe it. Again, this is something where it is saving time, but not taking away value work from humans. So this is where, I don't want to spend an hour or so after a meeting typing up my notes, making sure I capture all the actions, or even listening back to it and transcribing the notes. I can just push go on Copilot while I'm in a call, and it'll transcribe it and give me a summary, and then I can ask it questions. What was the link Luke talked about for generating an AI avatar? And it will reply that back to me. So advise, if you do nothing else today, go and have a look at those kind of tools. We're very slightly over the time for the presentation section, but hopefully that's given you a bit of an introduction into some of the kind of use cases that there are out there, and given you a taste for what where AI is in terms of its development. I would love any questions you have, please throw them through. I can see there's a couple in the Q&A section. We also have this post-attendance questionnaire. Please do fill that in. If there's anything you'd like a lot more information on, there's a section there you can add that. Put your email address in, because otherwise it'll come through as anonymous, and I'll make sure one of us follows you up. So I'll do a little plug as well. If you do have a question, please, if you've got 5-10 minutes, feel free to throw it in the chat. I hope you found today useful. There's only so much you can do in a half-an-hour session, but certainly hopefully we've given you some ideas on what you can do. As an attendee that's signed up, you'll get a copy of the recording, and we'll also send around the slides to all of you. I do a bi-weekly newsletter. In that, I make sure that there are actionable insights you can take away and do with AI every time. So you can subscribe by going to our LinkedIn Intergage group page and finding it on there, or scanning that QR code. Thanks very much. We hope to see you in future sessions. We do also run more detailed sessions and workshops. And if you'd love more details on those, please do get in touch and we can help you out with that. Thanks very much and have a great day. Bye-bye.